listening in may be familiar with Simon's regular audio show, which is titled A Daily African Proverbs, which I am a big fan of because, and actually, why don't I pass over to you? I know you have an introduction, but please tell us about Daily African Proverbs, just because I, for one, I love African proverbs. They fascinate me. It's like there's a proverb for everything you think about.
That is totally true. And, I have to say that I learn a lot from hosting the Daily African Proverbs every Monday to Friday since January 2021. But that was not the beginning of me spending time with Proverbs. Many African people and also many people around the world, grow up with words of wisdom and proverbs in their culture. I know of Chinese proverbs. Bruce Lee had a very famous proverb or saying, be like water or be water, But African proverbs for me are so important, especially because they remind me of my mom. By the way, this is Women's History Month. So, my mom is such a driving force in my life. And so she used so many proverbs. Whenever she was congratulating me for something good I did, she would use an African proverb. Whenever she was rebuking me for doing something, that was not good, she would use another proverb. So I never forgot the lessons that she gave me. And so, in early 2021, when, the pandemic was biting, people were, primarily indoors, I decided that, let me try going out with a proverb, not just on my social media platforms, but creating a space like this, where we have a conversation about an African proverb and dissect it and get lessons from it. And since then, it's become a very important part of my daily routine. And there's a community of people worldwide that, join me daily, including here, on WISDOMapp, where we learn and we, in the process, we protect our culture, but we gain, lessons that we utilize every day in our lives,
Oh, I think absolutely. And, if people are interested to check it out, of course, you will find this recorded in Simon's talks on Wisdom, but then he also does broadcast across other platforms, and then his website, which is in essence his name, Simon Javan Okello. But to his point, I really enjoy it because you choose a new proverb every day and you just kind of reflect and yeah, just think about it and how it may how it may apply. And the thing about Simon, it's difficult to introduce you because you have so many roles, some of which I know is father, media creator, musician, entrepreneur. So I know you wear a lot of different hats. You also refer to yourself as an African father in America, if I'm correct as well.
Yeah, that's true, because I thought a lot about who I am, and I knew that I'll always be an African father in America because I have 3 daughters, and my wife is white. So I know that I'll always be, in the center of complicated conversations, whether it's with my daughters, whether it's with, my own community, whether it's with my white friends and family. I just had to ground myself in who I am, from the moment I knew who I was going to become. I just wanted to own being a father fully and embrace it, and also build an ecosystem around myself that would allow me to thrive as a human being, as a father, as a media creator, and also as a musician and an entrepreneur. And this is not something that started recently. When I was 8 years old, my mother gave me a bicycle, and she asked me to help her distribute milk and bread in our neighborhood. I was not the only one. She was hiring other teenagers as well, and she was paying us, a little commission for all, for the crates of milk that we deliver to other smaller shopkeepers. So over time, I learned how to survive through entrepreneurship, through learning what I can find that others need and deliver it to them at a profit. Learning about the issues that are going on in our community and coming up with solutions, not sitting and waiting for help, but coming up with solutions and then improving on them, and turning them into programs and businesses and into movements.
Mm-hmm. So this natural entrepreneurship born out of necessity.
Yes, it's true. It's true. It's true. And as I was saying earlier at the beginning, my mom is such an influence in my life, and also my sisters. I've been very privileged. I have so many sisters. Our family is huge. I come from a polygamist family, so we all had to scramble to even survive in our household because we were so many. And then in 1997, my mother started an orphanage home. So between 1997 to 2013, we were living with about 60 children in our compound every day. So if you could not eat quickly, there's no food for you. If you're not at home during dinner, there's no food for you. So we were disciplined because of that situation.
And let me also ask, and so we can picture visually. So which country and which kind of state or province were you in, and were you growing up in then?
Right. I grew up in Kenya, in Kisumu,
Okay.
Kenya. And Kisumu is the largest city on Lake Victoria. And Lake Victoria is the largest lake in Africa. For those who don't know, I'm just trying to paint a picture. And Kisumu is a beautiful city. That's where, Lupita Nyong'o comes from. Lupita Nyong'o is a famous Kenyan actress that was one of the main actors in Black Panther and Queen of Katwe, and also Obama's father, was raised in that general area. So,
Oh.
yes.
And I was going to say, and if it's okay if I ask in a few more questions, just so I can be sure we paint a great picture and a very interesting late Victoria, no doubt named that from the British, maybe I'm sure Queen Victoria or
That,
something like that.
that is
And
true.
so yes, we have to note how these things came to be as well. And then in terms of, let's also talk about, you said this was a big household and it grew up polygamous as well. So can I also ask how many wives, I would say, I don't know whether you would say, or stepmothers. I know it's not really the terminology how you may have referred to it, but how many were there?
Yeah, mothers. I had two mothers. Yeah,
Mothers. Aha,
Yeah.
you see, because sometimes, and that's the next thing I was going to ask you, because it's not stepmom. Sometimes it's just some. Did you call them all mom, or was there like a different terminology that you would refer to?
So my eldest mom was called Mary. So we just said Mama Mary, which means our mom who is called Mary. And then my mom was Mama Marceline, which means, our mom who is called Celine. But then that was children who would say that. But adults, they called women with the name of where they came from. For example, this is just an example. If Dayo came from Nigeria, then if you are married to a Kenyan, especially from my tribe, and you are not present, but people are referring to you, they would say Dayo Manyar Nigeria. Dayo, who is the lady from Nigeria. It's a very respectful way to be called, by the way.
Okay, yeah, thank you for explaining. And to be fair, even when I think about extended family members, there were some people. We had somebody called Mama Akura, and she was from Akura, but we would just call her of Akura and just refer to them from where they stem from. So I think, yeah, I think a lot of people were sometimes referred to that way. Okay, so you had the mums, and then before the orphanage, approximately how many siblings were there within your family from
Uh,
the mother?
Yeah, in my own household, my mother's children nine, were nine in total.
Okay. And what was that? And what was just paint a picture for us of what that was like. 9. 'Cause that's
We were never 9 at any given time. We were at least 12. The children of the
oh,
first wife were always in our house, cousins. We were always at least 12 people. That is just children. Forget about adults. So our house was also by a main street, a main road that led into a very busy part of our neighborhood. So almost every week we had someone who was lost who would spend a night we had a room by the road where it was for visitors and relatives. So every day there was someone there. So our household was always busy because it was right by the road. And then my parents were also very much involved with the church. So, every other week you'd find that a pastor or a bishop spends the night at our house too, because it was closer to the church. It was also close to one of the main bus terminals in our neighborhood. But it was in a very dangerous neighborhood. We lived in a neighborhood called Manyata. And, if you look up Kisumu, especially if you look up the post-election violence that happened in 2008, and also whenever there is elections in Kenya, Kisumu is one of the regions that, there's a lot of violence that happens. And historically, since the British left Kisumu, especially Kenya, when they left the whole country, they divided the ethnicities. So Kisumu has always been in the opposition. And, there's a tribe known as the Kikuyu that the British passed the leadership of the country to. They've always been in leadership. So most businesses are owned by them. Now things are changing. And finally, like in the entire history of the country of Kenya, a Kikuyu and a Luo candidate are working together for the very first time since right before independence. These two communities were connected, but then the British didn't want Kenya to thrive as a country, so they divided the leaders that were bringing these communities together until now. So a lot of interesting things to talk about.
my goodness, yes, and to your point, it's so interesting. I think with see, and the majority of African countries are ex-colonies, and it's always a very similar story where there was a colonizer, and then it was the divide and conquer strategy, and then resources, and sometimes even access to education. Certain groups, certain tribal groups would be, you are. So for me, I'm of the Yoruba tribe, and I believe when we were colonized, the Yoruba tribe were encouraged to go and be educated. So we just naturally ended up as, I think, more educated and being of more power, but then it creates this power imbalance, right? And then that is where sometimes a country it's very difficult to ever have stability, right? Because of how things had been left in place for decades. So it sounds like a very positive, signal that they're kind of beginning to undo this and rework together.
Yeah, eventually, good conquers evil. Nature takes its course, and good things eventually happen. But it's not without a lot of sacrifice and suffering. And, the environment I grew up in has been oppressed for the last 60 years in Kenya. But now, part of the work that I do is to demonstrate that even though we come from such a region, we can still do impactful work. We can still transform our own communities. And so, as I was saying earlier, my mother started an orphanage home in 1997. And so part of the work I do is to continue running that space, even though she passed on in 2020. It's a very vibrant physical space that exists in Kisumu, Kenya. And a lot of the work I do on, here on Wisdom or through my podcast and my nonprofit, and a lot of even the book I just released is really tied into, getting resources, getting connections, and really using the space we have to then create a model of taking orphanage homes in Africa, in some of the most, you know, disrespected neighborhoods, and turning them into creative hubs where tech companies like, you know, Wisdom and all the other big tech companies can actually get talent, get, you know, a lot of their needs met. So we want to turn places that are desolate into resourceful places.
Okay, and I think, and it's great that I think now we're, of course, you know, naturally speaking about your book, which I know it's very, very timely, called Rooted in Love. And I will say, of course, to anybody, and I will just remind to anyone listening, and of course, Simon does have, he has used his wisdom profile sort of custom links to point out to various things. And you know, soon in the future, we're also releasing some additions to the links for you to add more. But so yes, I mean, please tell us, because Simon, you've worked on so many things, but I would love to know about your book, and you know, particularly, where does your book start regarding, you know, even your journey, right? You're now the African father in America, but originally started in Kenya. But yes, please tell us about the book and where does it start?
You're such a good interviewer. You know, I didn't know what to expect. Ah, man, that's a good question. What I would say is, you know, for a long time, I didn't even know that I would live beyond 20, live alone even being 38 as I am right now. Because I lost a lot of my peers when they were like 15, 18, 19, you know. So being 38 is like being an elder, you know, because I grew up in an environment where even dreaming of writing a book like the one that people can touch now, Rooted in Love, is a real miracle and a real, you know, demonstration that anybody can do something. You know, there's an African proverb that if you want to know that you can make a difference, spend a night with a mosquito in your room. Then you'll realize that the mosquito will make you sleepless, but it's so tiny. And by the next day, by the next day, if you don't stand up and do something for your community, for yourself, then there's nothing else that can wake you up, you know. So really, this book started again when I was 8 years old, when my mom, you know, my mom used to wake up at 2 a.m. in the morning, and I would wake up because it was not safe for women to be waking up at that time. So as a little boy, sometime my dad was around, sometime he was not around. I had an older brother, sometime he was around, sometime he was not around. But I was the one who listened, you know. My mom always, you know, woke me up whenever she wanted to wake up. I would be carrying the bag of money that she wanted to use to pay people who are helping her. You know, I was always there in moments where I saw her build her business. For a long time, she was someone who was, you know, not even wanted in our family, in her marriage, in her own family, in our community. But her work brought people to her, you know. She just kept working. She didn't focus on this is what so-and-so is saying or doing to me. But she focused on, if I do this, this is the change that is going to happen. If I do this, this is the change that is going to happen. So, you know, that's where the book started. You know, if you look at the back of the book, it's her picture, you know. And, you know, she never got to travel to the US. She was once in London. But I just wanted the world to actually familiarize themselves with her face, because there are so many incredible women in the world like her, in the slums, like where I grew up, that nobody even knows their face. Nobody even knows the kind of work that they've done, you know, to not just raise one son like me, but to raise 9 children. She lost one, But then to raise over 2,000 children, she paid school fees for these children. Us ourselves, I didn't even graduate, but she taught graduates, doctors, teachers, not one, not two. She ran an orphanage home from 1997 to 2013 when she could not do it anymore. Her health could not just allow her to do it. So that's when I began helping with changing that orphanage into a creative hub. So if you walk into the same place where you'd find tens of children lined up for food in the late 90s, if you go there now, you'll find dancers practicing, you'll find musicians producing music, you'll find, film being produced. It's a vibrant space, And so for me, this book is about people who used their strengths, the little strength that they've amassed to help other people, and also this book is for everyone to just look deep inside them. If you're reading it, if you're hearing about it, every one of us have something that brings us here in this world. All of us already have a niche in this puzzle of creating a sustainable world, and it's just important that you find your village that helps you ground yourself in who you are and live that life of, your dream, even in the simplest way possible. So, that's the hope. That's the hope with this book. But to just add a little, the book is also a photo book. It's a really beautiful coffee table book that, I can literally hold it with one hand. There's a beautiful essay in it. And this essay came out of a story where I was in a leadership program here in Seattle in 2011. There were lawyers for some of the biggest corporations, Casco, Facebook, attending that program. And here I had just arrived from Kenya as an immigrant. And there's an owner of a construction company who was attending the program too, that I had met him in Ghana. I was doing some work in Ghana and Liberia, building hospitals and clinics. And so he wanted me to attend this program because he felt that I was a good fit. And luckily, I got a 2-year scholarship to attend it. But then at the end of the program, people were pitching their initiatives that the cohort could support. And I pitched One Vibe Africa, this organization that exists here in Seattle and in Kenya that, I founded to help create, opportunities for youths in the same environment I grew up, to not use violence to establish themselves as entrepreneurs or artists, but to look at what's available for them. Do you need a guitar? Do you need a camera? Do you need a safe space to produce and record? So we've created this space. We are always collecting music instruments and gears here in Seattle, in Germany, and sending it to Kenya every year. And so we are bringing the tools, and then we are bringing the network, and then we are using apps, like Wisdom, and continuing to empower other young people so that it's not just me who is demonstrating that there's a new way that the story of Africa can be told, but then the young people that I mentor, both here in Seattle and also back in Kenya, and the others from across the continent that I continue engaging with through the work that we do with One Vibe Africa. So besides the essay in the book, we have amazing pictures. I took some of them by myself, and then we have pictures that were taken by a New York-based photographer and a Sweden-based photographer as well. Then we have stories from people like Rocky Dauni, who is a Grammy-nominated artist from Ghana. We have senior TED fellows who have shared their stories in this book as well. So it's not just me, but there are other voices who are also speaking to their experience working with me over the years. So that's what Rooted in Love is about. But, the timing of it is also incredible because, even if we look at what's going on in Ukraine right now, Rooted in Love speaks to how we can find solutions even where you expect to find no solution. you know. And so, it's demonstrated by the work that we are doing in the slums of Kisumu. I was amongst many youths that were already written off. There are times when I would leave my neighborhood for like a year, and when I went back, I would find so many of my peers who are already dead, that people would be wondering, why am I still around? People could even ask you questions like, we thought you're already gone. There was a rumor going around that you're gone. And so when you think about such things, and then you wake up and find that, I'm now a father of 3 girls. I'm running an organization. I just wrote a book. I have a successful podcast. I have people that want to even listen to me, like you, Dayo. Then I know that, things can only be better, not just for me, but my community and then the world.
Wow, I mean, Simon, thank you for explaining. And I think it's amazing because it's like your story goes full circle. So it's like it started in your community in Kenya, and then it sounds like you also worked around Africa, then in Seattle, but then you are now doing amazing, very hands-on development work back in your original community with the orphanage that your mother had started. So I want to just go back and understand more about your story. So first of all, yes, I have gone to check the book cover. So I've gone to your website, Simon Javan Okello, and from there to the link to your book. And I'm just saying this in case anybody else who's listening in wants to see. And yes, I can see on the back page of the book, there's a really wonderful photo of your mum there, which I think is lovely. And I've actually clicked through to Amazon and I've had a look at some of the photographs that are in the book, and I think it's really smart. I think to use it as an opportunity, right? Just to have like some beautiful photographs. So I have one question. The little boy that is on the cover of your book, I can see he has some paint on his face in a particular design. And I wanted to ask you, is there a significance to that?
Yeah, that's a really good question. There is some significance to that. It's also just, I'll explain it in 2 ways. The painting there is just, a sign of hope, a sign of hope that is represented by a young, that's a girl actually in that picture. But
Oh, my bad. No earrings.
yeah, you can't tell though.
You can't, but I
Yeah,
think at that age with the low hair, right? I guess they
yeah,
have earrings.
yeah. Um, and so in this book, there's a story of a girl called Farida, and Farida is the main character. So that's why you see the face of a little girl in front of the book. And then, my mom, as I was saying, was a woman, and she raised so many strong women. And one of the things we did was a fashion show program where we would bring like Miss Kenya USA from the US to Kisumu in my neighborhood, and she would teach these young kids, modeling and pageantry and confidence, and they would also teach her. And we had several Miss Kenya USAs go to Kenya for as part of that partnership before the pandemic. And so a lot of young girls from my community are now running their own fashion design, companies. They are running their own fashion show events because of the kind of people we were traveling to Kenya with from the diaspora. And my hope is that as things get better, we then begin taking more amazing women who are doing great things like you, so that girls can learn what's possible. Because if you educate a girl, you educate the entire village. If you empower a woman, you empower the entire world.
I think absolutely, and just yes, because I think sometimes, traditionally some of the cultures can favor, men more. So I'm definitely a big fan of showing the women what they can do. And so the next question I had is because you also mentioned that from when you were younger, you didn't expect that you were going to survive past the age of 20. And you mentioned a dangerous area. And I wanted to understand more about that. Like is this sort of like crime or political instability, or, what were the dynamics of the environment?
So we lived in an environment where we were literally disposable living things. Politicians would come to my neighborhood, give drugs and alcohol to young people, then use them to go and kill people in another neighborhood. Gang members would pray and recruit young people into their communities. Even the Al-Shabaab in Somalia, they would recruit kids in our neighborhood because kids were just so desperate, families were just so desperate. I lived in an area where in the mid-90s, HIV prevalence was highest in our neighborhood. And that's why the orphanage was started in 1997. And at that time, and until the early 2000s, we had children who were as young as 12 that were heads of households, So the desperation there made it so that, you'd see your peers, just people are dying left, right, and center, and it was normal, and I am really fearless with a lot of the work I do because I know that life is short, and I do the work I do because I know that I can be gone anytime. So every day I do it as if it's my last day. I think that's one thing that living in Manyata has helped me with until today.
Well, thank you very much for explaining, because it's do you know what I mean? It's always good to understand in terms of the dynamics. And even I too was curious when you were describing the place and your town and your city. I was thinking, oh, why would it be, unsafe? But then in explaining about the political dynamic and almost inciting almost like inciting the violence, which is just, very unfortunate. And then I wanted to ask, why do you believe that you turned out differently? So you didn't become part of the expected statistic of, not making it past 20. Why do you think your outcome was different?
That's a good question. I honestly think I give credit to my mother. I think my mother was very hard on me. And at the time, I didn't realize why, And then maybe even 2 years ago is when I began realizing that, wow, this is what she was trying to do. She was trying to teach me how to survive, And so I think it was primarily because I listened to her. I rebelled, but I didn't go too far because from a young age, I spent a lot of time around her. So I began empathizing with her cause. I believed in her mission, because I started seeing the change she was making for me and for my family, for my community. So I became a fan of hers and a believer in hers. And I understood what she was trying to accomplish for herself. So I was cheering her on. And I think in the process, I was learning something, and I was also trying it. I remember the first, I produced big festivals. There are festivals I produced that bring, tens of thousands of people together. And the very first one I produced was in our backyard, and I got into so much trouble because too many people came, too many people came. It was Christmas Eve, and we borrowed a neighbor's music system and a microphone from another neighbor, and we used word of mouth to let people know that we'll be hosting a Christmas Eve party. And before we knew it, the entire backyard was packed. The police came and we were in so much trouble.
And which neighborhood was this in now? Where were you?
In Manyata, the same neighborhood I grew up in, the same dangerous neighborhood I was talking about.
Okay.
Yeah. So, when you live somewhere, even people in Palestine, they still have a good time, even though it's difficult there, So anyhow, but one day she showed up at one of my concerts, which was very unusual, and she came with her friends, and they walked in, and then it took years again before she came to another event I was producing on Lake Victoria, as part of a campaign to protect Lake Victoria about in 2019, and she was also there the entire time of the event. And just seeing that, I learned risk taking from her, I learned diligence and discipline from her. For me, those are some of the things that people don't learn in school, and I was able to learn from this amazing lady.
No, thank you for explaining. And I'm going to ask you a little bit more about parenting. And then I'm going to come back to ask you more about One Vibe Africa, because I think that's had its whole journey as well. And I think to your point, it's so we said it's your mother that was this overwhelming influence. And I think it's very fascinating that you described like you were her helper, but you saw her building and you saw her helping people and how it drew people back to her. And it's something I wanted to reflect on, and particularly, of course, with you being you would have been a child you said you're waking up at 2 a.m. And roughly how old do you remember you were then? Just want to know the age, two, three, four,
I was 8. I was 8 years
5.
old. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And the reason why I'm asking that is because I think one thing that really fascinates me, that I think we see a lot in sub-Saharan Africa, and I think potentially other cultures, it's how like when a child, it feels, I don't know how to put it, a child can be so responsible and achieve so many tasks from a really young age. And I would say for me, growing up in different cultures, and yeah, and from the time, I spent in Nigeria, I never knew, for example, that you could put an 8-year-old or a 9-year-old in charge of a 3-year-old, and they could do the job and feed them and bathe them and in essence be a de facto nanny. Like, does that make sense? It's very interesting that I think if you grow up in certain cultures, you think, oh, children are children, they can't really do that much. But as you've said, you were mum's helper, and then you were going in the neighborhood, right? And doing jobs, and you were probably, I don't know, were you negotiating prices? And it was just something I wanted to reflect on, because I know that was definitely, I would say, a culture shock to me, that I saw, even if a child was selling something at like a stall, this child had to count the money, they would negotiate the price. They were like a mini entrepreneur. And I just think until you see it, you kind of didn't know it was possible. But I wanted to just reflect that with you. And of course now, because of course you are an African father in America, and I'm not sure if I was wondering, with your girls now, were you thinking when they were old enough that they could start doing little businesses? And but I'm curious to see, in terms of, you had such a different experience, right? And then now your children have been born into different environment, right? Different, and I'm speaking from my experience as well. You flick the light, electricity comes on. Back home, it's not a guarantee that electricity is going to come back on. You turn on the tap, water comes out, and it's clean most of the time, depending on where you are. And I really wanted to get your perspective on how you see that difference, how you manage that difference, what you think about that difference. Because, I'm always being told by my parents who are back home, sometimes they're like, oh, you have it so easy. You don't, you take all these things for granted. But yeah, I would love to see how do you sort of manage and view, this difference, and of course the life that your three daughters are growing up in, and compared to yours.
Yeah, that's a really good question. It's one of the things that you have no control, or I have no control over. And I didn't choose to be married to someone who isn't. Yeah, well, I didn't even know I was choosing at that time. I think I was just um I was very committed to my relationship at that time. I was in love, and I just focused on that. I didn't focus on, oh, we will have children, this is going to happen. For some reason, I didn't think about all that.
Mm-hmm.
But what I see with my daughters is that, they're real. They're real. They're real because I am real with them, and I share with them. For example, the proverbs that I share every day, they know a lot of these proverbs. I talk to them about it. They listen to my podcast. They listen to me having meetings. Sometimes I leave them on the phone with my siblings in Kenya, or my nieces, or nephews. And sometimes they're challenged to speak in Kiswahili with these people. And for years, my oldest is 8. I speak to her primarily in Kiswahili and Luo. Sometimes I'm so disappointed because everything is in English. So no matter how much I try, they still speak in English. But sometimes I realize that, my daughters have to define who they are and where they belong. And also for me, I am realizing that I just belong to the world. I don't belong, to any particular space. I feel that the freedom that I seek for humanity is for everybody to be able to live everywhere and feel at home. When I'm in Seattle, I should feel at home just the way I feel at home in Kisumu. It's very hard to do that and to feel that comfortable. But I think I need to get there. I think the goal is for my daughters to feel that it's a privilege for us to have all the things that we have now. And I explain to them. Sometimes I make African food at home and they just refuse. They just say, oh, I don't like that. And then, we negotiate. We say, well, you always say that you want to learn Kiswahili, you want to learn Luo, you want to learn your culture. How will you learn your culture if you can't even eat your own food? So then they say, I see, you're being hard, Then I say, no, but that's the truth, So then I'm real with her. She feels cornered and she's like, oh, I'll eat it. And then I add an incentive. I say, okay, if you finish it, you get this queen cake. You guys call it queen cake. We call it cupcakes,
Okay, yes, yes.
Anyway, so, I put incentives whenever possible, but it's always negotiation. It's always negotiation. The difference is, in my case, I didn't have a chance to negotiate a lot in growing up. A lot of the time,
Oh no.
yeah, if you try to negotiate, you get a beating.
I mean, but that's the thing, right? When you are one of many, there is no room for negotiation, is it right? Mom just had to get it done.
Yeah, no room for negotiation. But here, here, for example, for me to be able to focus here, two of my youngest daughters are upstairs. They're watching a TV show. They were negotiating between themselves about which TV show they should watch, And so they were watching, trailers of shows that they want to watch, and that alone is a show. So I'm telling
Yeah.
them, I have to go for an interview, you guys need to decide. And then they're like, just give us a moment. But in Kenya, it would be the same show every day, whether you like it or
Yeah.
not.
Oh my gosh. No, I think there's so much to delve into here. And first of all, I think it's great you at least spoke your language Swahili and you spoke it to them. I think that is amazing. Sometimes I think when people emigrate, sometimes they don't want to speak the language and they and then maybe they're not proud of it. So I think it's amazing that you've done it and at least you've provided the opportunity, and at least with them there'll be like a little bit of familiarity. And yeah, I think it's great with the food as well. And I think it's interesting what you say about negotiation, right? And I agree. I think it is a very big difference culturally. I think when you grow up as one of many, right, whether it's siblings or cousins, and yeah, like there isn't room for that negotiation. Even in the morning, if you have lots of children to get ready for school, everyone just has to do what they have to do, right? There isn't the time for this initial thing. And culturally, like you said, it was almost considered it was rude. Like you would land yourself, some quick discipline. And now it's, I think, yeah, as you said, there's a lot more room for, negotiation and things like that. So no, I think it's amazing, and it sounds like you're having this sort of great multicultural experience. And I know at the top of the talk, when I asked you um, how you refer to yourself occasionally as a African father in America, I think there's also a piece to reflect around, which I love in terms of where are you ever comfortably feeling at home. And I wonder if with some of our listeners, some of our wisdom is listening in. I think it's an interesting one, whether, and it may be that somebody has maybe moved across America to work in a different state, or people have worked in a different country. And this notion of, will you ever truly feel, where do you truly feel at home? And sometimes you may leave home for a long time and come back and you're like, I don't really feel at home here anymore. And I think that is an interesting track to think about as well. But would you say you feel like, are you on a journey with that in terms of, where do you now fully feel at home?
You know, I feel that I definitely feel at home when I'm in Africa, because I own a lot of land there, ancestral land included, and I have planted a lot of trees there. Some for projects that I'm involved in, some just personally, and I have a lot of friends and family there. But also here, I am deeply rooted here in Seattle. I have a lot of family, not my Kenyan biological family, but a lot of, my wife's side of the family is here. But a lot of people that I've connected with here, that I've been to Kenya with multiple times, that have become family as well. So I feel that I'm slowly becoming a global citizen. I used to think that I used to imagine that I wanted to become a global citizen, someone who just feels comfortable anywhere in the world, and I just want
Mm-hmm.
to be like that. I want to, I want to find a corner in every part of the world where I can show up and feel comfortable. Even for a moment, I don't have to totally feel, like I own this and that. I just want to be able to feel like, if I go to Ghana, there's a part of the community where I feel at home, just through the relationships that I have, so I just want to say that the relationships that I have make it create home for me. I think I have many homes, and I feel that what home is for me is in the relationships, the conversations that we have with people. And conversations these days are not very meaningful, so where I find a good conversation and good friendship is where home is for me.
Thank you for explaining that. And I would say, Simon, I think you could maybe feel free to call yourself a global citizen. It definitely sounds to me like you've essentially achieved that. And it's interesting. You do have me wondering, for people who do consider themselves global citizens, even for them, I do wonder if they ever fully feel at home somewhere. You just really had me thinking that sometimes for people who have spent vast proportions of their life in different locations, I just wonder whether I definitely probably would try and say global. I never feel 100% um like I belong in either place. I've just kind of accepted that I'm a hybrid. And I just say I'm a hybrid, and it's fine, because sometimes even for me, I'll be back in Nigeria and I'll be like, oh, why do you think like this? And then in the UK, I'll be like, why do they think like this? And then I'm like, okay, culturally just a hybrid in, perhaps in the middle of both. Now, I know we are counting down to our last 10 minutes, and I know, and actually I want to make sure I will turn it back to you in terms of, because I know I've guided the conversation a lot, but just to ensure that I leave some space for you, because again, you have worked on so many projects, and I think done so much good in the world, and it's all interrelated, and we don't even have time today to cover everything. But is there anything in particular that you would like to speak about?
Thank you so much, Dayo. First, for hosting me, for having me. This has been an incredible opportunity, and what I would like to speak about is, if anybody is listening that would like to grab a copy of my book, Rooted in Love, I would really appreciate that. Check it out. If you want a signed copy, just send me a DM on Instagram, and I will be able to, ship it to you, especially if you're in the US. The other thing I want to speak about, Dayo, is that I'm really proud of you and the work that you've done here on Wisdom, and the work that you've just done as a leader, and, who you are is just very special. So, I just hope you continue on. I want to know how I can help, how I can also be more involved, and how I can support what you're doing. I think that's what I would like to learn, if you don't mind sharing that. But besides that, this is amazing. This has been an amazing conversation. There are questions you asked, and I've never been asked those questions. So thank you for allowing me to just reflect and go back to those many years.
Oh, thank you, Simon. That's wonderful, because even I often ask that question and I give people space to say, what would you like to speak about? And it's rare, but you've kind of used the time to, just to congratulate me. So I just want to say thank you for that. And in terms of, I mean, literally just being yourself and showing up on Wisdom and including us, the Wisdom community, just please, if you can, continue to include us on your journey, because I think you are on your journey as an African father in America, uh, and a global citizen, I'm going to say, and also still a very valuable Kenyan as well. I think you have a lot of hats, and I just want to say, just continue to include us on your journey, and include us, and by Wisdom coming, to share the content you create. Maybe one day you will do a Wisdom talk when you are back home in Kenya, and interview some people and put them on Wisdom and exchange ideas, in ahead of our global expansion. So yes, please just continue to keep us informed. And as the timer is counting down, yes, I would just like to encourage, for people listening in, I can see we've had at least 95 people either listen in or pass through. I would encourage you to give Simon a follow. He's, as I said, the daily African proverbs do make you stop, think, and pause. And if you follow his links through, absolutely, to the book, Rooted in Love, I can just see, I think that there's an amazing story there, and I think your mother features very heavily in the book. And I myself, I can't wait to read more, because it just seems like she was a remarkable woman and cared for not just the 9 children, but the 12 children, and in the orphanage, the 60 children. So I think there's a lot to be learned there.
Thank you so much, Dayo. I've just been scrolling through. I invited some people from Kenya to join us for this conversation as well. I'm just grateful to everyone as well. I didn't realize that we have 95 people here. Thank you all for traveling this journey with us, and thank you to those who are from Kenya who are hopefully listening. And thank you to those who will listen later. We are going to share this widely. So I'm grateful, Dayo, and I'll definitely continue being present here and continuing to contribute to the growth of this amazing platform.
Okay, absolutely amazing. And yes, and I'm going to say after you depart, I will leave the floor open for a while to anybody who may be listening in. If they want to come and just reflect and they need to share any thoughts that they have post the call with Simon, and it is just to reflect on calls post Simon, so no other business. But if anyone is listening in from Kenya as well, please come come. You're extra welcome to come up if there's anybody you've invited, especially. And you know what? Even if they couldn't make it today, once once I end the talk, the link will be available. So you can absolutely share it. And anyone back home, they can listen to the talk through the browser, which I
Hey,
think is important.
hey, Dayo, I have a friend from Ghana too, a duo that we host. We do a lot of events with her as well. She's an amazing travel enthusiast. She's listening too. She's in Ghana.
Okay, well, please, if you're interested, you'll see a purple plus underneath Simon. And, if you would love to come up afterwards and join the queue to reflect, I think she would be most welcome. So, Simon, thank you so much. Oh, I think Simon may have actually, let's see, is he here waiting? Uh, Simon, I'm not sure whether maybe let me have him back up again. He may have slipped out of the guest spot.
Hi, Dayo. I was trying
Hello,
to
sir.
create space for a duo.
Oh, you're so kind. No, as long as it Adowa, if you're listening in, if you just tap the purple plus that you will see underneath Simon, then you will join, you will join the queue and then we can actually have you up. So Simon, thank you so much. If you have time, definitely please stick around in the listening queue. I'm gonna just see if anybody wants to come up and reflect because you've really given us a lot to think about, and you shared so many stories, and yeah, and yes, please just keep on coming back and sharing, and thank you so much.
Of course, I'll stay here for a while just listening. And thank you again so much. I appreciate you.
Okay, all right, awesome, thank you. Okay, so I will switch you out for gonna say properly Olu Timileyin, I think Hassan. I'm not sure whether it was Oluwatimileyin or just Olu. It was Olu Timileyin Hassan. Hello. I am well. How are you?